The last thing we're doing for our project is creating a Gantt chart. A Gantt chart is an organizational device that essentially acts as a way to both lay out and visualize a schedule. The goal of a Gantt chart is to plan out all of the major activities that you think a project would need. And these can range from really small micro tasks to overarching phases of a project cycle. The Gantt chart has each item listed as a row, and the horizontal axis is your time dimension. So each segment could show a week, a day, or a month, or even a year, depending on the project length. A lot of construction management software, or CMS, have Gantt charts built into them. And one important concept of a Gantt chart that we won't be covering in this tutorial is the concept of critical path. So the critical path of a project is essentially what governs the project's completion. So there are normally multiple tasks going on at once. For example, on a regular building site, it is very common for the people who are doing steel erection to be working alongside the people doing some electrical work and the people doing some of the site civil work. All of that happens at the same time. So you have three things happening at the same time, but the critical path in this case might be your steel work. As soon as your steel work is done, then everyone who works on the interior of the building, the exterior, so the facades and the penetrations and all of that, can start working. But those people aren't reliant on the civil people finishing the stormwater infrastructure, right? They don't need all of the drains to be put in for them to start the inside of the building. So that's sort of what a critical path is. It's what needs to be done for the project to be able to move to the next phase. And we won't be covering that in this video. We will be making our own Gantt chart in Excel though, so go ahead and open up a new file, call it Gantt chart with the correct spelling, Gantt. And we are going to be working on two sheets. So this will be our project items, and this next sheet here will be the actual chart. So this is an example of a Gantt chart. This is for my capstone project, which is the steel bridge competition. Quick plug for that. This is more complicated than we will be making. We will not be making something this complicated. This takes a good amount of time. But you can see here a bunch of different tasks for the project laid out by category, and those show the time. So we have a start date and an end date that are graphed visually. And you can see how multiple tasks overlap at the same time, but only one or two of these would be deemed critical. For us, we have a priority here, so I could filter for critical, and you could see those here. So these are our critical tasks that we've put. So we will not be making something this complicated. If you really want to learn how to use Excel, or you want to know how to do like slicers and everything, come email me. I'd be happy to show you. But we'll be making a much simpler version of this. We're going to start ours by coming up with all of our project items. So you need to copy pretty much exactly as I'm doing for this video. The only thing that will be different is what you fill in for your project tasks, your start dates, and your end dates. So here we all have our left column be project phase, then project task, then start date, and then end date. Done that, I will double click on the lines between the columns to automatically expand them a little bit. And now we are going to create a table within Excel. So I'm going to highlight these cells and hit Control plus T or Command plus T, whatever works for you, depending if you have a Windows or a Mac. And my table does have headers. We just wrote them in. So I'll click OK. And you can see the table has been created. So the nice thing about this is this can expand. So you can add on items as you go if you wanted to. I am going to select my table and go to table design and change the look of mine a little bit. I'm going to see what I like. I'm going to use this one. It screams UVA to me. Yeah, I'll use this one. So I will also fold the titles, and I am going to select all my cells and just click the center button. I'll expand these out a little bit more, especially the project task one. That's where our descriptions are going to go in. And here we're going to have 3 project phases. We'll have the planning phase, the construction phase, and we'll also have the post-construction phase. So those are our 3 project phases. Your task here is to fill in project tasks, start dates, and end dates for these project phases. Now, I'm going to give you a couple things to think about here. 1, you need at least 15 items on this list. So this should go up to column 16 at the minimum, or row 16, sorry, at the minimum. You need at least 15 items here, and they cannot be the same 15 items I'm about to show you. You should be able to come up with a couple of different ones than I am here. And if you are having any troubles, come ask in office hours, post on Piazza. You can even use each other if you would like. And also use the internet. There's a lot of things on construction out there. I'm sure you guys can come up with some pretty interesting project tasks. The other thing that I want you guys to keep in mind of is selecting reasonable dates. So imagine you're doing this actual project, you're engineering, you're doing the design right now. When would you start the construction of this project for O-Hill? Well, O-Hill is used by students all the time. So you might want to wait until a summer break, for example, to start any construction. But if you're starting construction on summer break, that means all the pre-construction has to be done before then. So the pre-construction needs to happen now and into the spring. So these are some things for you to think about in terms of picking start dates and end dates that make sense. Now, you don't need to go exact. You don't need to say, my pond excavation is going to take exactly 21 days. You don't need to be that specific, but it should make sense to you. I am going to start filling in some of my project tasks and start date and end dates, and we'll rejoin at the end of that. Again, remember, your project task cannot be the same as mine, all 15. You're more than welcome to use some of them, 5 to 10, but you cannot copy all 15. All right, so these are all of my tasks I have done. I think 18 for you here. You only need 15. You're welcome to do more, as always, though. So now that we did that, I'm just going to quickly sort this table. So one of the cool things is that you can just sort them as you need. Because we made it a table within Excel, we are going to do a bit of a more specific sort. So I will highlight my table, go to sort and filter, and to custom sort here. Here I will create a sort based on the first level being project phase, and I want it to be by cell value, or actually we might need to do a custom list here because these are not in alphabetical or reverse alphabetical order. So I'll add my list entry here. I want it to be planning, construction, and then post construction. And I need to make sure that's exactly matching for it to work. The second layer of sorting will be by, well, we could do a couple different things. We could do project task. We could do project task and do that in alphabetical order, or we could do it by start or end date. I think start date makes the most sense, so I'll do that. And do, yeah, oldest to newest. So now it's here in order. I think mine already was, but now we can just look at it and double check. All right, that is the first part of this done. Now we'll go over to a Gantt chart. This is where we can really start using Excel formulas to our advantage. So I will start in the top left corner by listing our start and end date. Here, I will use equals. Equals is how you use formulas in Excel. I'll use the min formula for the start date. Go over to my project, items, and select this column, and click enter. And that will get the minimum, or the earliest start date. It's in the general format, which is why it looks weird. I'll go over and change this to short date, and it will look a lot better. And I'll do the opposite for the end date. I'll do max. So this gives us the last value here. So this is our project timeline, or at least my project timeline. All right, the next thing I'll do is move over one column, go down a little bit just to give me some space. This is where our task names will go, or project tasks. Below this, I will hit equals, go over to project items, and click on the top value here in project task. And now I can just double click this little box on the bottom right, or you can drag this down. So you can do this, right? Or you can just double click and it should fill automatically. Guess not. So I'll just drag it down. And it looks like I have the exact right number of cells right there. And those are all of our project tasks. These will serve as each of our items on our Gantt chart. Now I am going to change the column width here a little bit. So I'm scrolling out, I'm using control or command and my mouse wheel to do that. You can also use the bar or the controls on the bottom right here to do that as well. So I want my Gantt chart to be a little bit more compact than a huge cell like it is right now. So I am going to select E and go, let's see, I'll do this by month. We're going to do this by month, and we're going from June to the August after that. So that is 14 months, but maybe we can just show 2 years here. So that would be 24 cells. So up to here. And I'm just going to right click this and change my column width to be 30 pixels, though this doesn't look like it's in pixels. So we'll play around with this number. Let's try 3. Yeah, so I thought this would show up in pixels, but it's showing in not pixels, but you can set this value to be pretty much whatever you want it to be. That looks good to me. I'll do 2.8. Zoom back in a little bit. And now above the project tasks here, I want to list all of the months. So I will use 1 for January, and then 2 for February, and just repeat that to 12 months in a year. I will copy Control C and paste Control V to get the second half of the year. Above that, I will highlight all of the cells for 1 year and use the join and center or merge and center command here. And this is 2025. I can copy this to be 2026. I'm realizing now I made this 1 too low. So I'm going to actually use Control X to cut and paste this 1 above. That's okay. Let's remerge these. Alternatively, I could have just right-clicked and inserted a row. Here, I wanted to list out the month abbreviations like Jan, Feb, Mar, April, right? So I will use equals date. Here I'll put in 2025 just to be the year. Then it's asking for month. So month is going to be from the cell above. And then the day, I'll just use the first. So I can drag that over. And right now you can't see anything because it's not fitting. So I can decrease the text size here. Doesn't look like that's going to work. So I might increase the column width here to see if that will work. What does it need to be? So it's showing up in a large format. I don't want it to be that. I want it to just show the month. I'll highlight these cells, and to change the sort of data type here, I'll go to the drop down and go all the way down to more formats actually. Here we can go to custom, and you can see right now it's showing month, day, year, year, year. Year, 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 year. Sorry. I want this to just show months, so I'll just type in MMM. You can see what that looks like. So that's what I want it to be. I can also decrease the font size here a little bit. And then I'll just center all of it again. All right. So now we have our tasks and we have our dates. We just need to actually fill in the chart now. So the way we're going to fill in the chart is by doing a logical comparison between the months up here and the start and the end date of each task. So for ease of use here, I will copy over the start date and end date columns here. Just doing the same thing we did before. One of the nice things about this is everything's a reference. So if we go back in and change on our project items, if you change the phase or the task or the start date, end date here, it will update automatically here, which is what we're going for. We're almost done here. Now we need to fill in these with values so that way we can use conditional formatting to make them color bars. So let's go to the very top left cell here. One under, sorry, so that way it's client engagements here. I could, I guess, actually, I had everything in the correct place in the first time. So I'll move it up. And here we will write a very complicated formula. So follow along closely. The goal of this formula is to make two different colors. One is for months where a project task starts, and another is for whenever a project task takes the full month or ends in that month. So this is a way that we can see sort of what tasks when they start versus when they take up the full time or they're ending. It's possible to make this even more complicated or do whatever you would like with it. This is what we'll stick with for now. So for example, looking at this first task here, it starts in June 25. So looking at June 25, this would be a lightly colored cell. The way we're achieving the color difference is going to be through values. So we'll assign this lightly colored cell to be 0.5. July, though, is taken by the whole project task. So it's going to be dark, and that's going to be a value of 1. And then August will also be a value of 1, showing that it is a continuation of the task and it will end there. The value in September should then be 0, same with October, November, and so forth. And we need this to be a formula that can work for all of these months and for all of these tasks. This is going to be a little bit complicated, so bear with me. You should be typing out exactly as I type out, assuming your cells are in the right place, or the same place, I should say, not the right place. If yours are any different than mine, you should still be able to look at the same thing. So for example, if this number here, 1, is instead of in E6, it's in D5, that's okay. Just do what matches for the way you have it laid out. So no reason to wait any longer. I'll start with equals and ifs. Ifs checks for multiple conditions and will return the first true one. So I'll do ifs and open that formula up. I'm going to expand this down so we have some space. And here I will go to the next line. I can remember how to do that. So you can go to the next line in an Excel formula by using Alt plus Enter. So hold down Alt and hit Enter. And I'm just going to indent myself a little bit using the spacebar. So the first thing we're going to check is the date here for the month within our start date and end date fully. So here I can do and, because we need to check to see that it's both greater than the start date and less than the end date. So I'll do and we're going to use E7 here for me. So this number, or E6, I can use E7 here. This will be January 1st. If E7 is greater than AD8, so here, right here, our start date, and that's why the and is here. My second logical here is E7 is less than our end date, right here. Then our value, so we can see that's our logical test. If I put a comma, then what value is do I want if this is true? I want 1. Comma. Use Alt-Enter to go to the next line. Now we need to test to see if it's either greater than 1 and greater than the other, or less than 1, less than the other. So if it's like kind of on that fringe case where it's starting. So here I'll use or, and then and we need to check months and years here. So it gets a little bit complicated. If month or 88, our start date. So if the month is equal to our month number here, and our year is equal to our year. I am missing parentheses here, sorry. One part of our or here, or one part of our and. We're checking to see if the month and the year are the same. Then we're also checking to see if the month and the year are the same our end date, right? And we're just checking to see if at least one of these is true. I'm pretty much going to copy this same little chunk here. And instead of comparing it to the start date, we're comparing it to the end date. So again, we're checking to see if our start year and our start year and our start month equal our cell month and year, or we're checking to see if the end date or end month equal the value in the cell. So this is just our way of comparing and seeing where a project might start or end. And our value here is 0.5. Then our last condition is much simpler. We want it to activate every other case. So if true, then 0. I was missing parentheses here. There we go. I think this is our formula. So copy this down. We need the ability to drag this around though. So we just need to add in dollar signs to lock some of the numbers. So for example, we want these to be able to be dragged across but not dragged down, and we want these to be dragged down and not across. So just go through and add in dollar signs as you need them. Go. Now I can drag this all the way down the row, and I can populate it all the way down the columns as well. Now I'm not seeing values here, which makes me think that I did something wrong with the years because it stopped for 2026, and this shouldn't be here in 2026. I think I messed up something with my formula for years. Let's take a closer look at this. I'm actually thinking this isn't with my formula, but with my dates right here. When it resets to 2026, I should update that in my formula here. Now you can see it all update, and that looks pretty correct to me. The other thing I'm not seeing work properly is the difference in shading. These are all showing 1, and they should not be. So looking back at my formula, let's see if I can figure out what I might have done wrong here. Okay, so I think I was being a little bit silly, and there's actually nothing wrong with the formula. And instead, this just has to do with showing decimal places. Yep, just a decimal place thing. The point buys for rounding up to 1. The formula was fine. Sorry to worry you. So we have all these values here, and the last thing we can also do is create a sort of overall project timeline here as well by summing the column and dragging that around. So now we need to do a couple of things to get this to look visually appealing, right? And not like a bunch of numbers. So this is where conditional formatting will be our best friend. So to start with the conditional formatting, we'll break it up into colors. Colors are going to be by our project phases. So we have 3 phases, which means you should choose 3 colors. You're welcome to choose any colors you like. I will choose blue, orange, and purple respectively. So I'll highlight all of the cells that are relevant to my planning phase here. Go up to conditional formatting, create a new rule. Here I'll do a 3 color scale. And instead of it being automatically by the values that I'm highlighting, I'll actually change this to numbers. And so that will be 0, will be 0.5, that will be 1. I'll choose white for 0. I don't want anything to show up. For 0.5, I'll choose a light-ish blue, and I'll choose a darker blue for 1. You can see what that looks like here. I'll do the same thing for my construction phase. I'll do orange here. So just going to conditional formatting, creating a new rule on a 3 color scale by numbers. 0, 0.5, and 1. And I said I would do orange here. So I'll do white, then a light orange, and then a darker orange. That's a little dark. I'll do this one. And then my post-construction or closeout phase is here. I'll do the same thing one last time and do purple this time. And make sure you have all the cells highlighted that you want this formatting to be applied to. Otherwise, it won't be applied to those cells. Wow, I really don't have a lot of purple options here. I'll do it myself. I also want to do the same for my sum row here, just slightly differently. I'll do new rule. This can be a color scale based on the lowest and highest value. The lowest value will have a white box, that'll be zeros. The highest, I'll do a green here. Like any of these. That looks good to me. So I'll now highlight all of these cells and add one more conditional format here. I'll do format using a formula, and I'll actually do this a different way, where I'll just redo this really quickly. That's okay. So if the cell is greater than 0.1, so basically any cell with a value, I just want it to have a slight outline. So I don't want it to strike through. I want it to have a border. I'll outline it just like that. Okay. I will just drag this over, drag this down, and drag it all the way down. Edit that just so it is not locked to a cell. So no dollar signs here. That's why it wasn't working. Apply it to all of those. And I will just repeat this here. All right, that looks good to me. Thing to do here, highlight all of our numbers. In here, I will go to more number formats, custom, and for the format, if you just put in a semicolon, hit OK, all the numbers disappear. Last thing we can do is go to view and turn off our grid lines. And here is our clean, nice Gantt chart. So yours should look the same as mine. You're welcome to use different colors. You will have different time frames, and your tasks should be slightly different. But you should have a start date, an end date, your whole table here, your tasks, your dates, all of your bars, and your start and end dates. Should look like this. Make sure to submit this as part of your final submittal, make sure to submit this as your final submittal and do so as a PDF. That is the end of the work you have to do for the project. The very last video after this, we'll just go over everything that is due.